The moment the shot cracked through the air, silence swept across the elite marksman arena. It wasn't the noise that stunned the crowd, it was the precision. A single hole, dead center on the target. For a few breaths, no one clapped. Then the sound of disbelief turned to roaring applause. That was the moment everything shifted. But before we get there, let's go back. Because this isn't just a story about marksmanship. It's about how an ordinary-looking woman walked into the most exclusive shooting club in America and shattered the illusion of what greatness is supposed to look like. Her name was Grace Turner. She wore a faded blue cardigan, modest jeans, and walked with the hesitance of someone who knew what it felt like to be overlooked. She didn't fit into the manicured elite scene of the Apex Shooting Club, where men wore custom gear and women toted designer range bags. Grace carried a worn leather purse. Her entrance was ignored, even by the receptionist, a blonde with perfect posture and an even more perfect smile. "I'm here for the open practice," Grace said softly. The receptionist barely glanced up. "Members only," she replied coolly. Grace pulled out a wrinkled envelope. "I have a day pass." It was a gift. That earned her a raised eyebrow, but nothing more. From across the room, Logan Maddox noticed her. At 42, Logan was a legend. Olympic gold medalist, 5-time national champion, and poster boy for Apex's premium sponsorships. He wore the title of champion with the smug entitlement of someone who'd never been questioned. Born into wealth, raised around power, he had never tasted struggle. "Well, looks like someone took a wrong turn on the way to the thrift store." He laughed loudly, eyes fixed on Grace. His entourage laughed in unison. Grace heard, but she didn't flinch. She walked quietly to the far end of the range and unwrapped a plain Glock 19. While others showed off custom-modified handguns, hers looked almost utilitarian. A tool, not a trophy. Logan strolled over. "You sure you're in the right place, ma'am?" he asked with mock concern. "This isn't a sewing circle." Grace met his gaze, calm, unwavering. "I'm here to practice," she replied. Logan chuckled. "Tell you what, 50 yards, one shot, bullseye or bust. You hit it, I'll pay you 10 grand. You miss, you leave and never come back." Grace hesitated. "I don't gamble." Logan leaned closer. "It's not gambling if it's guaranteed. What's the worst that happens? You prove me right." The manager, a former shooter named Claire Jensen, stepped in. "Mr. Maddox, maybe let her be?" Logan ignored her. "Come on, it's just a friendly challenge." Grace looked down at her wedding ring, a simple gold band. She twisted it gently, then nodded. "All right." What no one knew, not Logan, not Claire, not the crowd now watching with popcorn curiosity, was that Grace Turner wasn't new to shooting. She was trained, not by sport, but by life. 3 years earlier, under grey skies at Arlington Cemetery, Grace had buried her husband, Commander Evan Turner, a Navy SEAL sniper known within the elite as Shadow. He died on a mission no one could talk about. The official story was a helicopter crash. The unofficial one? Redacted. What they didn't redact was Evan's skill or his dedication to training Grace during rare moments of peace. "If I'm not here," he told her once, guiding her stance gently, "I want to know you can protect yourself." Their training started as self-defense. It evolved into something more: connection, ritual, even therapy. Grace was a natural. Evan's teammates noticed it. "She's better than half of us," one joked during a joint practice. But when Evan died, Grace locked everything away. The guns, the memories, the skills. She moved to Boston, started a quiet accounting job, and disappeared from the world she once knew. That is, until last week, when a package arrived with a note from Evan's old friend, Marcus Lane. It held a day pass to Apex and 6 handwritten words. "Time to keep your promise, Grace." So now, in this elite, hyper-masculine world, Grace was about to fire her first shot in 3 years. She squared her stance, her shoulders relaxed, her breathing slowed. She squeezed the trigger. One shot, dead center. The room fell silent. Logan's smugness faded into confusion. "Beginner's luck," he muttered. Claire, now intrigued, asked gently, "Your name?" "Grace Turner," she said, almost apologetically. Claire nodded. "Grace, would you consider trying the advanced range?" Before Grace could respond, Logan's pride flared. "Let's up the stakes. 3 shots, 75 yards. Hit all 3. I donate 50 grand to the Veterans Foundation. Miss one, and you admit you cheated." Gasps, murmurs. Grace considered walking away. But something inside her, something Evan had lit and grief had dimmed, flickered awake. One condition, she said. If I win, the money goes to the Veterans Foundation. No delays. At 75 yards, she adjusted. The Glock wasn't built for that range. But Evan had taught her more than shooting. He taught her control. The first shot, bullseye. The second, bullseye. A pause before the third. Grace twisted her ring again. The final shot, dead center. Logan's face drained of color. Claire brought over the targets. All confirmed. Logan stammered. She rigged it. Claire's voice was sharp. There was no cheating. She just outshot you. Logan fumed. One day. One match. Her versus me. 10 weapons. 10 stations. Fair gear. She wins, I pay. I win, she admits it was a trick. Grace nodded. I accept. That night, Logan called in every favor, hired investigators, ordered background checks, dug into Grace's past. What he found chilled him. She's the widow of Commander Evan Turner, his investigator whispered. A SEAL sniper, nicknamed Shadow, trained her himself. Everyone said she was a prodigy. Logan drained his scotch. This wasn't some hobbyist. This was a ghost in civilian clothes. Meanwhile, Grace received a call from Claire. Logan's pushing for changes. New rules, harder stations, all legal, but meant to trip you up. Grace's response was steady. Let them. I'm not here to win a game. I'm here to keep a promise. The next day, Marcus visited. You know, Evan always said you were better than you believed, that when you finally returned to the range, you'd remind people what real skill looks like. Grace teared up. I didn't mean to become a symbol. Sometimes, Marcus said, symbols choose you. She trained for hours, alone, at a public range. With Evan's old logbook, she revisited every lesson, every formula, every whisper of technique he left behind. Then, as if fate aligned, she met Commander Felix Ward, another SEAL who had known Evan. He offered to coach her with the Macmillan TAC 338, one of the rifles included in the final challenge. Nathan left a mark on all of us, he said. Helping you is helping him. Grace trained until her hands were raw, her aim flawless. The night before the competition, she sat alone, holding Evan's folded flag, whispering, Tomorrow, I stand for both of us. Game day. The Apex Club turned into a coliseum. Press, spectators, veterans. Logan arrived in full showman mode, sponsors trailing behind. Grace, in a simple shirt and jeans, walked in alone. Claire met her. Some of the equipment's been tweaked, not enough to disqualify, but enough to sabotage. Be careful. Grace nodded. I've trained for worse. Station after station, they battled. Logan was fast, mechanical, flashy. Grace was quiet, deliberate, surgical. By the 9th station, they were tied. It came down to the final rifle, Logan's specialty. He went first, 9 out of 10 in the inner ring. Nearly perfect. Grace approached the rifle, noting the altered scope. No complaints, just a breath. Then another. Her first shot, bullseye. Second, bullseye. The crowd grew still. On the 9th, a light flashed in her peripheral vision, a distraction from Logan's camp. She refocused. Bullseye. 1 shot left. With every ounce of control, she fired. Bullseye. Applause exploded. Claire held up the final scores. Grace Turner, first place. Logan, pale and furious, stepped forward. She cheated! Claire cut him off. Security footage says otherwise. In fact, it shows your advisor tampered with the rifles. Gasps. Reporters surged forward. Logan stood paralyzed. His empire of ego collapsed in real time. Days later, Logan's team offered a settlement. $100,000 to the foundation, a public apology and a meeting. Grace accepted. In a conference room, Logan sat in a plain suit. I built my identity around being the best, but I've never faced someone who shoots not for glory, but for memory, for love. That unnerved me. Grace didn't soften. You disrespected a promise, not just mine, but every veteran's. He nodded, shame finally breaking through. That's why I accepted a suspension from competition. You didn't just beat me, Grace. You revealed me. Weeks passed. Grace didn't return to her old job. Instead, she joined the Veterans Foundation to lead a marksmanship program for reintegrating soldiers. Her first students, 6 wounded veterans, listened as she began. I'm not a champion. I'm not a soldier. But I was loved by one. And through him, I learned how to breathe, how to focus, how to stand. Months later, at a fundraiser, she stood before the crowd. 1 year ago, I walked into a shooting range to keep a promise. Today, we honor Evan's legacy with a scholarship that will help others find peace through precision. As the crowd cheered, she touched her wedding ring one last time. For you, Evan, she whispered, I stood my ground. And for anyone who ever felt invisible, know this. Behind quiet eyes can hide extraordinary power. And sometimes, The most devastating shot isn't fired out of rage, but out of love.